Hello, everyone. Derek Floyd here, Beautiful Now Podcast. Welcome to another edition of Chasing the Impossible. Now, this is the segment where I interview special guests who happen to have accomplished impossible things along the way to let you know that no matter how big your dream you're chasing is, how impossible it may seem, if they can accomplish theirs, then guess what? You can accomplish yours too. And if you enjoy this kind of content you're watching, do me a favor. Pause right now. Hold on. Stop real quick. Hit me with a like or subscribe to the channel. This lets me get the most updated content to you as soon as it's available. And most importantly and dear to my heart, if you really enjoy this content, share it with a friend, because we want to make sure everybody leaves uplifted, encouraged, and inspired. Now today I've got the pleasure of having a special guest that's been around the business for over 20 years. Can you imagine that? And he's been making records with everybody out there. I'll go into who they are later. I'm gonna give you a couple right now. How about Babyface, Beyonce, Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, just to name a few. And if you've listened to pop or R&B and gospel, then you've heard this man's genius all over the airways. And talk about genius, he's even humble to boot. And a great friend. So if you want to check out a great guy, check this segment out with my man, the main guy, this guy right here. We know him as Tony Dixon. Tony, you there, man? Talk to me.
Yeah, I'm here, man. What's going on?
had to talk
Derek.
you up, man, because you are the genius. You so low key about it, but you are the genius, bro. What's going on?
I'm good, man. You make me sound like I'm kind of a big deal, man. I appreciate it. No, I appreciate it. No, I really do. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
You're a big deal because you're one of those cats that's extremely professional, incredibly gifted, and you're humble. So that makes such a huge difference, man.
Yeah, man. That's the only way I know to be, man. That's the only way I know to be.
Come on. I know it. So, man, thank you for taking a few minutes just to talk to us and share a little bit about your story. It's funny, you and I've been talking, we know each other for years, and I've never had a chance to get you on this segment. What have we been doing?
Mm-hmm. I know, it's crazy. I'm glad we actually worked it out. We were carved up the time to make it work, though, because you've been my guy for a long time, and you've supported anything I've ever done. And I just really appreciate it, and I'm glad you were able to have me on your show, man. That's all.
Oh man, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. So let's jump right into a little bit of your story. You've been a successful producer, arranger, songwriter for over 20 years in the biz. Of all those hats that you're wearing, which role do you enjoy the most, and why is that?
You know what? There's not one that I really love more than the other. I actually like the entire process. There's nothing like being able to have an idea that is formulated in your head or formulated in the artist's head or the creative director's head or the music supervisor's head, and then being able to translate that and actually bringing what you have in your head to life. You know what I mean? It's actually still amazing to me. I still marvel at God about how that actually happens, when you're able to have an idea that comes from nothing and then actually becomes something. So I enjoy the entire process from start to finish, real talk. So
I love that. Yeah. And you've achieved so much success in the music industry. We're talking, 3 of these babies right here, Grammys in the house. Multiple top 10 hits with multiple artists we'll go into shortly. And one might assume that music was your first passion because you've done it so well. But was there anything else that you wanted to do, or you have another passion maybe out there people don't know about?
Okay, so that's kind of a 2-part question. But so first, to be honest, when obviously growing up, when I first got introduced to the music business and realizing that could be a career, I started out dancing. So I used to dance. I'm from Denver, Colorado. Shout out to my hometown. And so I used to dance locally and stuff like that. Me and one of my good friends.
You was on a dance troupe? Was you rocking it like that?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, we're gonna have to hide those videos somewhere. but yeah, and so
I'm
I
gonna have
thought,
to
at the
find
time,
that for our next
oh my
segment and bring
gosh,
it on
yeah,
so
my
I
mom
can
has it
put you
somewhere or whatever. But yeah, and so I thought, of course, I thought that was going to be my gateway to the, to the entertainment business or whatever. But um, then on a more serious note, my introduction to the music business came actually birthed out of pain, which is
Mm,
something a lot of people don't really talk about. But for me, it was really birthed out of me losing my father. My father
mm,
died when I was in high school in a car accident, and we were very close. And it was one of those moments where I felt like I had nothing, no outlet. I didn't understand how to process that emotional side and deal with the trauma of what had happened. And so I turned to music, and music became my everything. It was my therapist. It was my haven. It was my safe space. It was my vacation. It was all of that
mm,
stuff. So I just did it all the time.
mm,
And then fast forward, I kind of realized that it was something that I could actually do as a career, and I dove all in.
mm,
Um, so yeah, that's the short version of it. But then, um, in regards to other passions that I now have,
mm,
one of the things that I've done that I picked up probably about 6, 7 years ago was photography. So I do a lot of
mm.
photography. I've actually done campaigns. I do commercial photography. I do fashion work. I do beauty campaigns.
Wow.
I've shot portraitures. I've done all kinds of different things when it comes to photography world. And now it's becoming, because we're now living in a content creation world.
Mm,
I also do. I'm getting into the video world and directing and things like that. And so anything that has to do with the creative spaces are the things that I'm truly passionate about. I love that artistic side of being able, again, to create nothing and make something out of it.
So it sounds like the creative process in general is all you're involved. I mean, you're involved in the whole thing,
Yeah,
every part of it.
yeah. Every part
Wow.
of it, man.
Wow.
It's it's a joy to me. It's not to get too spiritually heavy right away, but
Oh,
for
good,
me,
man.
that's the closest,
Tell your
to me,
story.
that's the close, to me, this is the close, that's, music is the closest thing we have to God, in that,
Yeah.
you know, it's a connection that there's nothing like being able to have nothing there and then actually
Yeah.
create something out of nothing. It's to me still a marvel. And I'm in awe that I even got, I'm even chosen to have a little piece of that and be able to be a vessel that God, a lot is uses to be able to even share that sometimes. It's amazing to me still.
I love that answer because we all know
Yeah,
creation comes from him. So if you're in the
man.
creative process, you've given it to him right out the gate, whether you know it or
Period.
not. Yeah. So
Period. Period. Period.
so
I have a very difficult time with being in the room or being surrounded by arrogant creatives,
mhm.
because those are the same people that think that it's all about them. And when you
Yeah,
realize that it's really not, you know what I
it's
mean?
not.
You can hone in your craft, and of course, you can work on your skill and all of that. But at the same time, you got to get the download.
Yeah,
And
man.
once he gives you
And
the
if
download,
he shuts that faucet off, dude, I don't care how good you think you are, your creativity's
yeah,
gone.
period. And if
Gone.
you don't have your life, your health, your strength, all that other stuff that goes along with it, none of this matters. So it's like, to me, those are the things that are really more important, more valuable. And those are the things that also keep me grounded. I realize where it all comes from.
Preach, man. Preach. Go and get it.
Yeah.
Go. 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 Hey, man, I'm going to give you one of these. So
Uh,
let's talk about your career, man. You work with some of the best in the industry. Let's talk
mm,
about Alicia Keys and
mm,
maybe Ariana Grande. You've worked with
hmm.
Beyonce. You've worked with
Yes.
Omarion, Tony
Mm,
Braxton, Justin
yeah.
Bieber. I mean, you have
Yeah.
Dawkins and Dawkins. Come on, you
Yeah.
keep going
Yeah.
with all these artists. Can you share a
Hmm.
specific lesson that maybe you've learned that all these artists maybe hold, or if they work with this kind of caliber of artists, you got to bring your A game? What would you say you've learned from that space?
Um, I would probably say one of the bigger lessons I had to learn was to stay in the moment and get out of the way. When you're working with an artist, obviously an artist of that caliber, you've already been asked to be in the room. So, you have to trust on your instinct and your skills and your practice and all the things you've kind of put in front of you, um, to just go in and deliver. And so what you do is you just start to trust those decisions that you make and the choices that you make along the way. And really you have to get out of the way, because our job as producers and songwriters and things like that is really to convey their message and to convey their story
Mm.
and convey how they're feeling. So if they have a particular emotion or an idea that they want presented, our job is just to make sure that it's done in a proper way, in a way that they hear, and of course giving them a little bit of our flavor and what we kind of would love to say. Okay, well, how do you feel about adding this to it or whatever? But at the end of the day, it's really about trying to get out of the way and delivering the message the way they want it to be delivered.
Mm.
um, I'm a firm believer, we're in the service industry. This is not
Mm.
about us. You know,
Mm.
we're here to deliver a service. We get offered to be in the room with someone like that. It's always a privilege, but at the same time, we're offering and providing a service. So you want to make it enjoyable, you want to
Mm.
make it memorable, and at the same time, you want to make sure that you deliver something that they're really going to be proud of and that they're proud to sing. Because this is the thing, when it leaves us and it leaves this room as a
Mhm.
creative, they're the ones who have to go out and sing it a million times over. They have to
Sure.
sell it to the audience. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And so if they don't believe it, they're not going to want to do it. But if
Yeah.
you want them to have that song that every time they go out, they want to sing it. They're enjoying it. They're enjoying that memory, or having that recollection that made them think about something when the song was even created. So you want to try to create those moments. And so those are the things that I really try my best to do.
Mm. I love it. I love it. And it seems like when you're in your role of the creative process, whichever role that be, producer, songwriter, arranger, what are you
Hmm.
doing to draw the greatness from them? Because each of them is different in their own way. You have to
Yeah.
kind of relate to them a different way. Is there
Yeah.
one thing or multiple things do you do that draws the greatness from that great artist?
Yeah. I think first thing is you have to create an atmosphere, um, of comfort for them. You want to make them feel comfortable in the environment. You have to make them feel like this is a safe space for them to be vulnerable and to be themselves and share whatever it is that they want to share, and be a thing where they don't feel like, sometimes I've had artists that I've worked with that have confided in me with a lot of different personal stories, but they have to feel safe enough to know that you're not going to share those with everybody.
Mm.
That it's safe in this room, that it stays in the four walls of the studio. And at the same time, you want to make sure that they feel like it's an enjoyable place where they can again express exactly how they're feeling. If they're in a good mood, you want to make sure that you give them something that just heightens and enhances that.
Mm.
If they're a little bit down, you want to make sure you want to make sure you convey that and say, okay, well, you talk with them about what they're going through, and why they feel the way they feel. And the one thing that happens, one of my good friends, Brian Michael Cox, B. Cox, says this all the time: the song is in the conversation. You sit
Mm.
long enough with someone, and you sit and you have these moments of just kind of getting to know the artist. 9 times out of 10, they'll talk their way into a song, or at least a song idea.
Mm.
And so you just sit there and you have to make sure that you're attentive and you listen, ask the right questions, um, make sure that they know that it's like, okay, this is leading somewhere. You want to talk about this. You've said this. Why? How do you feel about talking about this? And you give your suggestions. And that's kind of how I try to approach it. I try to create a space of comfort, safety, for their vulnerability, and at the same time make it enjoyable. Because again, this is all about the memories to me.
Mm.
So that's what I really try to rock with.
I love that. And you didn't come at it like demanding. You're saying, here, I'm here to serve,
No.
which I don't hear that producers often. Mostly they come in, you pay me to be here, let's do it this way. But your heart
Yeah.
is like, you know what? I'm coming in to serve this artist. I want to bring the best out of them for this project. I want them to see their best come from it. And that makes everybody win. That's a great way of looking at it. I love that
Yeah.
servant's heart in that, man. Love that. Love
Yeah.
that.
No question. It's like, well, because the thing is if it was about me, then I should just go ahead and be the artist. You know what I mean? It's not about that. It's not about that. My goal is to create the canvas for them to tell their story. And I always say that music is what feelings sound like. That's
Mm.
kind of how I kind of try to convey it. So our job is just to try to figure out a way to convey their feelings. And if I try to make it about my feelings, then my ego's in the way. And if
Mm.
my ego's in the way, we're not going to get the best product. And the artist is not necessarily going to care, because it may not necessarily be how they're feeling at the moment. It's about me and what I think they should do and how I feel they should do. And then you start dealing with that balance of the commercial side and the music and the business.
Mm.
And okay, well, we need a record that sounds like this versus how they're necessarily feeling. you end up bumping heads a lot of times if you just try to get in the way and try to make them do what you want them to do. Again, it's not about us. It's really about them. We got to be servants, and that's how you have to look at it. To me, I believe that's a big reason why I'm still able to do what I do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Listen
Yeah.
to y'all. Listen to these youngins. Listen, youngins. He's telling you how to
Mm.
get this done. Y'all, Mr.
Yeah.
Producers out there, listen up.
Yeah.
Listen up. Speaking of that, you've been a part of multiple production teams along your
Mm-hmm.
career that created
Mm-hmm.
so much music around for so many artists. How important do you feel like collaboration has been to your growth as a producer and a songwriter?
It's everything to me personally. I love the collaborative process for multiple reasons. I think I'm smart enough to know that I can't do everything all the time, and God has placed me around some very creative people in different points and along my journey. And so, if that has happened, I want to make sure that I hone in on that. That's another great thing about being a producer is knowing when to lean on someone else's gift. And it's not just about, again, it's just not about you. And so for me, I try my best to put great people around me, talented people around me, and on top of that, you get these great stories and these great memories with the people that I get to work with. You know what I mean? One thing I've had happen along this journey that happens a lot is sometimes I don't necessarily remember the song, but I remember the story that led up to creating the song or what we did around that song. And that makes it that much more, for me personally, that's what makes it so much more enjoyable. I've always been a team player when it comes to the music business and my particular journey. I've always enjoyed collaborating with people and bouncing my ideas off of people and leaning on their gifts. And again, just having that collaborative spirit for me is all it's about. I enjoy it. Of course, I've done a lot of records on my own, but for me personally, I always prefer and enjoy the idea of us doing stuff collectively.
Tell me a little bit about a couple of the partnerships you've had. I know one was with
Mm-hmm.
called the Pentagon. Tell me a little bit about that and how that's transpired. Where
Mm-hmm.
you are with that.
So, okay, so I'll kind of go the shorter version. So,
You can talk as long as you want, man. We
well, no, no,
relax. We just
because
chilling.
I worked with the Underdogs, which is one of the more well known. That's probably the most well known collaboration I had. Shout out to Damon and Harvey and Eric Dawkins and Tank and Steve Russell and um, Lil Ronnie and all the guys. James Fauntleroy. We had a lot of great people that were around us, and so um, that was one of the most enjoyable eras of my career because the fun thing about it is we all did everything, and but at the same time we all wanted to be around each other to create good music. And so it was so much fun. We had so many stories, we had so many experiences that I get to have for the rest of my life. They were incredible. Fast forward, I ended up at a particular time. You eras everything has their season. So that particular season ended. I decided, myself and Eric Dawkins decided to partner up, and we created what was called Anonymous for a while. And the idea was centered around us. It had several meanings, but the idea was like we've always been those people who were kind of behind the scenes, and so let's just go ahead and make sure that we stay anonymous and keep it about the music. And so that's one of the things that we did with that. Fast forward, it led to the Pentagon. Well, Pentagon was supposed to be a 5-team production team. It was supposed to be myself, Eric Dawkins, Babyface. Um, I believe it was Tank and Damon. Did I say Damon Thomas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Eric, Damon, myself, Babyface, and Tank. And I think we even talked to Jay Valentine. It's a little. I want to make sure I get the story correct. I may
It's
add
all
a little
good.
bit, but bottom line is we all got together and we were going to create like this, kind of powerhouse super production team.
Mm,
Everybody didn't all have the same vision at the time, which
mhm,
completely understandable.
mhm.
Um, but it ended up being an era where it was myself, Eric Dawkins, and Damon Thomas. Um, and we were able to do quite a bit during that era as well. We got to work with people like Michael Bolton,
Mm,
uh, I'm trying, Christina DeBarge,
mhm.
um, gosh, quite a few people. Bobby Valentino. It was quite a few people at that particular time.
Hmm.
We actually had a group called I Square that we ended up signing over to Jimmy at Interscope. So we had several things that we were building. Again, that season passed, and then I ended up connecting with Babyface, with Kenny directly.
Hmm.
Kenny and I got together. He had approached me about us working together on a more long term basis. And how do you say no to that? You know what I mean?
And see,
Like
you stole my next question. I was gonna say, what about this guy? One of your
yeah,
most successful writing partnerships that you've been around,
yeah,
is this guy, and
yeah,
obviously one of the best songwriters on the planet.
no
But give
question.
me a little bit more about, you said how it came about. You guys were working together, but then you said,
Yeah,
"Hey, let's just do this together for a minute." Did you guys just
yeah,
agree to start working on different projects, or did you just say, "Hey, let's try something and see what happens"?
yeah. It's so funny because true story. We had he had approached me about us, working together, and as we were trying to fill each other out and understand how each other works and what the best creative process was, the one of the very first projects we ended up getting on together was Beyonce. Um, we got the call to go to New York to work on, at the time, her Four album, and so we go out there and we get to spend a couple weeks working with her and trying to figure out what that process was going to be and what she was trying to convey at that time. And so we ended up working on that record and did several songs for that. And as we did, even some of the songs that didn't make the record, one of them in particular that comes to mind is a record we did called Baby I. We presented it for Beyonce. She ended up passing on it. We gave it to Ariana Grande. It ended up going on Ariana's project. So that's how things kind of worked. Um, you know, it was one of those things where fortunately we had a good enough song where even though it didn't go where we thought it should, it ended up where it was supposed to be. And so truly grateful for that process. We got to work with Alicia Keys. We actually worked with Alicia in Jamaica. She had set it up so that we all got to go and do a trip out there to work on her Girls on Fire
In
album
Jamaica, not a
in
bad place
Jamaica.
to go to work on a record.
Not at
Just
all, not at all.
saying.
It was actually pretty amazing because she had rented out the entire facility. There was this, we all had our own bungalows and rooms and everything, and in the center of it there was a recording studio, and so that's where we got to work at. Everybody was working in their different rooms, and she would just go between each room. So engaging, so kind, so
Wow.
gracious, and such a great woman. And so we got, we got to work on that and build with her. We worked with um, the great thing about working with Kenny has been that he's such a diverse songwriter
Mm,
and for me that's like my sweet spot. I love being able to just go into different genres and things like that, just to keep the creative challenge going.
sure.
So we've worked with Kobe Calais, and then Celine Dion, and then it would be Aretha. We got to work on Aretha Franklin's last album before she passed, and yeah, and of course his album, and he and Tony's album, which we worked on together.
Mm,
um and so there was all these projects that we get to work on, but at the same time I had particular projects that I would bring to him, and then he'd get to be challenged as well, because it would be things that maybe necessarily he wasn't always privy to immediately, and he would do his thing and come in and give his, I call it the Babyfaceisms. He'd give it and come in and do what he does, make the record, take the record from good to great.
wow.
um and that's what one of the big things that I learned from him. He's an incredible talent.
Hmm.
um and but he also taught me the um how important it was to work hard, continue to work hard, because he's one of those people that would still be at the studio at 10 a.m.
Mm,
before
wow.
every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And didn't have to be,
Yeah.
let's be honest, he didn't have to be,
Sure.
but would be in the studio, and sometimes you just come in the studio. I would come in the morning or whatever, and he's already there working on some ideas that he had.
Mm,
And because he just truly loves what he does. And so we would do that all the time. And then so I picked up a lot of those um, ideas from him. And then the other thing is he's a very meticulous songwriter.
Mm.
So every word with Kenny matters.
Wow.
And so we can write, again, we can write a lyric, or we can write a chorus, or we can write a song,
Hmm.
but he'll want to go through and cipher it and make sure that the story is saying exactly conveying the exact message you want to say. And it's so funny because you could write a lyric and then change one word in that verse or that chorus or whatever, and completely change the idea of what you're trying to
Oh
say,
yeah.
or make it more impactful, literally by just changing one word or changing how it was phrased or whatever. And so I really picked up a lot of that from him. And so to this day, I still use those same ideas. Like when I write a record, I still
Hmm.
want to sit down and say, okay, did we come up with did we say this the best way we could?
Right.
Was there a
Right.
better way we could have said this? Or, let's reach. If it's one of those things where it's like uh, sometimes the first thought that comes to your head
Hmm.
is the assumed answer. Let's go ahead and see if we can reach,
Yeah.
find something a little, let's dig a little deeper creatively to see if we can come up with a more clever way to talk about it. And so
I
those are the
love.
big things that I learned from him.
Oh wow. And you guys are still
Yeah.
writing together to this day, obviously.
Yeah. We haven't worked together in a minute because he's been touring and he's been
Yeah.
doing a lot of other things. And both of us right now have a lot of other endeavors, but we're still
Sure.
great. We're still connected. And at any time he calls me, I'm there. So yeah,
Well,
it's
one of
not a
these days we
problem.
got to we got to have him on the segment. We have to reach out and make that one happen.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Kenny, if you're
Absolutely.
watching, we got you. Come on, stop
Right.
by, talk to your fans.
Right. Hmm.
So, speaking of fans, I got some shout outs that people want to say hey to you. Let me see if I can bring them in for you. We got, let's see here, add to the broadcast. Hey, Uncle Tony, Chance Dixon
Right.
jumping in. We can see it.
That's my
We,
nephew.
that's your nephew. We got
What
another
up?
one in there. Here we go. Hey, Tony from Piranha Head, Detroit. Don't know that
What
one.
up? What up? Yep, I
What up,
know. I
Detroit?
know.
What
What
up,
up?
D Town? D Town.
What up, D?
All right, and we got Katie Robinson saying, "Love this. This is the way we do
Oh,
it."
awesome. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir. And Miles Morris said, "Tony, what's good?"
Hey, Miles.
And look, my mom jumped in like, "Hey, son." There's my mom. Hey, mom.
Enough
Much love,
said.
mom. Glad you
Right.
watching. We know we got you, mom. Best mom in the world. Always,
It
always,
is.
always, always. Gotta get some shout outs. Gotta get some shout outs. Hey, we'll just do
Ah,
one of these for him. Wait. Shout outs to the peeps right
that's become my
there.
new sound.
That's gonna be you gonna put it in the next record, bro. Gotta do
Yep.
it.
Oh my gosh, that's
So
hilarious.
man, seriously, you and the multiple teams, especially with the Pentagon, especially with Kenny and with
Hmm.
Dawkins, you've all worked with. You work with multiple genres over the years. Is the
Hmm.
creative process the same working in every genre? Do you start differently in each project that you work on?
Um, it it varies, but I also try to be flexible enough to adjust to whatever the job requires. Um, One of my closest friends, he's like my brother, is Smokey Norfolk. He and I have worked together for years. Shout out to Smokey. Um, our process is a little bit different because he, again, is a great songwriter. He's a musician, obviously an incredible vocalist, and um, he's usually pretty clear on once you give him a direction, he's pretty clear on what it is he needs to say or how he wants to say it, and nobody can say it better than him. So again, that's one of those moments where with him, I of course he respects my input, um, but at the same time I make sure that I just convey his message the way he hears it. He and I will pray before we do sessions to make sure that we're saying what God wants us to say in the songs and things like that, just to make sure that they're done the way he wants them to be done. And then we just go. Um, and then, you have situations where, for example, if you're doing like a Kobe Calais, when we work with Kobe Calais, it would just be sitting with her and a guitar and almost like folk writing. And so one of the records that I got to do with her is a record we did called Try. One of them, that's one of them. The record we did called Try. And literally it was about, we were just sitting in the studio having a conversation about how social media was affecting so many of these young girls, and
Mm,
they were doing all of these things that they felt like they had to do in order to be seen, because that's
yes.
what all of us want, but
Yeah.
trying to figure out a
Yeah.
way to make that happen. And so it was like trying to figure out how all of that kind of fit in was really, really difficult. So um it became a you know, we started talking, and at the end of the day, she was just like, I don't know why these girls feel like they have to try so hard. You know what I mean? And I don't get it. And it's just so frustrating. And so again, out of the conversation, we were like, we should do a song called Try. Let's just talk about it. Like, these girls don't have to try so hard. And so when you look at the lyrics, we literally just started working around that idea of a girl kind of talking to herself in the mirror, and all the things that she may not necessarily say, but she's thinking. You put your makeup on, get your hair done, do all these things so they like you, and all this other, and she's kind of talking to herself. And at the end of the day, the answer is, wow, I'm doing all this stuff. You don't have to try so hard. You don't have to do all that. You got to be able to be comfortable with yourself. And so that was a whole different process, with Beyonce, for example. It was, she had, at that particular time, she was talking about doing, she wanted to do some songs that had a very 90s influence sound on it. And so we talked, and through that, I asked her, I was like, well, do you have kind of like a playlist together of things that you really want to, songs that you like to party to and dance to and things like that? So she plays a couple of records that ended up on the album. Mm-hmm. But in that process, she kind of gave us a bunch of ideas of some 90s ideas. So again, that was what we decided we were going to do. Okay, let's kind of go back into our catalog and listen to some old records and try to figure out ways where we can implement some of what that era was and try to bring it up to date for her and make it kind of new and give it her twist. You got records that, that came out from that point where, like, if you go back and listen to that album, you got Love on Top is on there. You got the Party is on there. There's all these really cool records that have kind of a 90s feel to them.
They do.
And that's literally what she was looking for. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so, to your point, every process is different, but at the same time, you have to be flexible enough to give them what they want. There's sometimes I may know if I'm working with a particular artist, I may just go in and put on my A&R cap and come up with some track ideas before I even get in with them, just so I have something to play for them.
Sure.
Just me being creative and saying, oh, what would I love to hear? Let's just say like a Toni Braxton. What would I love to hear her sing right now? See her sing. And so it's like, okay, well, and I'll come up with some ideas and I'll play them for her. And you hope that something sticks. There's something that kind of, that she feels. And so that's another process. You might have the track ahead of time. Sometimes I just have the concept. Sometimes it'll be, and this is another thing for all writers that I would suggest. A lot of people are always talking about how they don't have, they worry about writer's block. And to me, there's the easiest way to avoid writer's block is to always be writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that it always has to be a microphone and a ADAT or a computer or Pro Tools or whatever. But again, you have a phone, you have voice notes, you have notes, you have all of these things where people have so many things going on where you can literally, in the middle of a conversation, go in your notes and write down a title. You may see something or watch a movie and it spark an idea. That happens for me all the time. So what I do is I have a list. I have notes in my phone. I have voice notes when I hear a melody idea. I'll write if I hear a sketch, I'll literally go quickly, just lay down the sketch on an iPad or whatever, just so I don't forget the idea. And then I'll come back when I have time to kind of develop it, and I'll try to develop it that way. So what happens is when you actually get in the sessions with these artists is you're not necessarily reaching for ideas all the time. You have a Rolodex. You should have a Rolodex of things that you can say, I have a couple tracks for you. See if any of these work with what you're saying. Again, through conversation, I think this concept will work, or this title. What do you think about this idea? And so you try to present that, and that's another way you try to work it. Or if they have an idea, again, sometimes it's just like you sitting down, getting on the piano or coming up with a beat, and I just literally just will play until I come up with something that they like, and we'll just try to build together. So that, I know that's kind of more the long answer, but
no,
the thing is
I love the fact that well, you and I are always talking about this, but creativity is from God completely. So
yeah,
he never stops creating.
No.
So the faucet's always on. It just depends on if you're listening, or if you're got the faucet on and you're taking down notes, because he's always pouring something out. Now, whether you're on that frequency to get it that day or not, for all of us creators are that way. Either we're tuned into that frequency, we're picking up that signal, God's dropping something to us, or we're just not listening that day. It happens. We're not always on. But as soon as we
Well,
hit
and
that signal,
here's one of the bigger things. I'm sorry to cut you off,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
but here's one of the bigger things, man, that I found to be very true. Usually, the thing that blocks you is your ego.
Yeah,
You
yes,
get in. Usually, we get in the way.
yeah.
You know what I mean? If an idea is brought to us, usually our thought is it's not hot enough, it's not a number one, it's not beating whatever they're trying to play, and so we get in the way of these ideas, not realizing that it could have, it could spark something that could be huge. You may not have actually written that song, but or written the song that he or she is going to use, but it ends up leading to another song, which actually becomes the big idea. And so learning to get out of the way and letting your ego get out of the way and stop thinking that it's always about you and just trusting the download that you get for the moment and say, okay, maybe we didn't nail it today. That's why they call it a hit, because there's way more misses. You know what I mean?
I like to record it. That's why they call it a hit, because there's way more misses.
There's way more misses.
That's a nugget right there. That's a nugget.
Yeah. One of my
That's
it's
a
funny
nugget,
because
yo.
one of my good friends, I saw one of my good friends, Harold Lilly, say this. He's a great songwriter. Said this on another interview, and he said, just because you don't place a song doesn't mean that the song doesn't place you. That's beautiful to me, and it's so true, because even though you didn't necessarily, let's just say you're working on a record and it didn't get placed, it doesn't mean you're not placed where it's supposed to be. It did its job.
Yeah.
And so once you learn to get out of the way and stop letting your ego be the thing that drives you, then you realize that there's no such thing as a creative block. You just didn't maybe write that hit that day.
Yeah.
But trust me, you have enough to work with. There have been so many records that I've been a part of that I've been able to come back sometimes years later and play them for someone else, and they're like, that one, give me that.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was a thing that you thought was a throwaway,
So
and
real.
you learn not to get too married, especially when you decide that you want to make this a career. You learn not to get too married to the music and to the songs, because there are certain songs that me personally, I may not necessarily be the biggest fan of, right? They're records that they leave here and I can never listen to them again. Yeah. Those are some of the records that have changed my life. Then I have some, you know what I mean? Then I have some records that I actually, every time I want to play, like the ones that you want to brag and play to everybody, and you say, oh my God, this is the ones you're proud of, still sitting in my laptop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And that's just the truth of it. So, we're dealing with a subjective, creative space that we don't control.
So true.
So with all of that being said, it's stupid to me, and it's foolish for us to have the arrogance to think that it's about us.
Preach, man.
You know what I mean?
Preach. I
got some arrogant. It's foolish, actually.
It is. And here's somebody that says, Eclipse said, wow, love the insight about the process. Giving you love on the process, man. The process.
Appreciate you.
It's my boy cool, James Hicks stepping in from the HMC. He said, loving the discussion. There he is, doing it right, doing it right. And you know this guy. I know you know this guy. I told him we were going to be on the segment together. How about some Eric Bluetooth Griggs? He said, come on.
Hey, Bluetooth.
That dude know everybody. Guy, Bluetooth know everybody, dude.
Man, he's everybody. And beyond that, just not knowing him, he's such a talented, humble dude, man. Like, he's
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. You out there, Bluetooth. I've interviewed you twice. You know you the dude. Shout. Yeah. Wait a minute. Let's give him one. Bluetooth.
Yeah, it's not fair, man. He's not fair. He's not fair.
Yeah, ridiculous. He's 100%er. Get in the room, leave him by himself, and come out with a record. There it is.
Yeah, he's disrespectful.
He's that dude. Speaking of hits, so you said hit, like, there's so many misses, but only one hit. Of all the hits you've written on your own or with the production team, matter of fact, which one has been your favorite and why? And you've written quite a few, bro, so you got some time to talk about.
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Favorite one.
I'll go more recent, I guess, and kind of work my way back as I can remember. The record I did with not for, I'll say with Tony Braxton. There's a record I did called Long As I Live. Um, and I love that record mostly because that we actually were able to win an NAACP award for that.
Mm,
Um, got Grammy nomination and so on and so
yeah,
forth. But
nice.
the reason I love that record is because it was to me exactly what she needed for where she is in her career. I think
Mm,
it just fit her perfectly at that particular time. It
mm,
was just enough of classic Tony with a new twist on it, so her fans weren't like left waiting for something new. You know what I mean? It was like
mm.
they weren't like expect. It's almost like they got to hear a little bit what they loved about her. So
Sure.
I really really love that song. I love I'm proud of what we were able to do with that one.
Mm,
Um, but then for different reasons, if we have to go to different reasons, what we talked about when the Kobe Calais record, Try,
mm, mhm.
that's another record that I'm really proud of. And the reason I'm proud of it is because of how it affected so many people. Again, you write these records and you don't know how they're going to impact other people.
Sure.
They just they go out and you just let them do what they do. But I remember there was a particular time where this Try was being done on Good Morning America. And it was this
Wow.
little girl who had been in a car accident. She was maybe, I'll say, 7, 8 years old. She was a dancer, and she was born and raised as a dancer. Got into a car accident, had her leg amputated, and she was talking to her parents about giving up on dancing. And the entire time she was going through rehab, she was playing that song, and she actually performed that song on Good Morning America. And she told everybody at that particular time how that song, was so inspirational to her, and it helped change her life and helped help motivate her to want to continue dancing. And she literally went on and performed with a prosthetic um, device on the leg that she had lost, and did it. And it was a beautiful performance. And so that kind of thing, it reminded me of why we get to do what we do and how privileged we are to be able to have this gift called music that God gave us to give it to other people. And we a lot of times, us as creatives, we get into this space of thinking that it's about us and taking care of our families and you know being seen or being known or whatever. But then you have those moments where you realize that, like, man, sometimes we're able to convey these feelings that people don't necessarily know how to convey, and we're the soundtrack I just said, like, we're sometimes get to be the soundtrack to their feelings, and we get to be a timestamp in their life and all these different things. And so it's, to me, it's so great to have those moments. I love moments like that. And so just right off top, those would be some of the ones that kind of
Wow.
stick out.
Wow, I love that. And I love the meaning behind the ones you chose.
Mm,
And that just shows your heart. You're not about let me get the biggest hit. You're like the ones that make the most impact, the ones that
yeah,
resonated. And that's you, the producer. That's you, the songwriter. That's you, the person, being able to
yeah,
communicate that. So that's a whole nother
thank you.
layer, which makes you even as awesome as you already are. So I won't keep
Yeah.
adding it on. I won't keep adding it on because you're already
It's
awesome.
okay.
Already awesome. We got some more shout outs. I want to throw some things out there. We got Mr. Percy Beatty in the house. Said, yo, my brothers,
Purcell,
what's good?
he's one of
P.
my mentors,
Beatty.
man. Yeah,
P.
he's one of my
Beatty.
mentors.
He is the
He
man. Don't get it wrong. And P. Beatty, you up in 2 weeks. Don't clown. We got him up
yeah,
coming up June 7th. Y'all be looking for it. Coming up, coming
yeah.
up. P. Beatty's going to be
For
in the
those who
house.
don't know, Google him. That's all I'm gonna
Google
say.
him. The dude is
Google
fierce.
him.
Don't act like
Yeah,
you don't know. Don't act like you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
So,
Stop it.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
disrespectful. It's disrespectful.
And a couple other shout outs. Let's see, we got Armani Raleigh. He just said nice, nice. Give you
Yeah,
some shout
thank you.
outs with that. And hey, and Holmes Invasion. She said, hey
Hey,
Tony,
yep,
what's
hey.
good? So people giving shouts. Let's give one more time for it. Yeah, there we go. Little shouts for that. There we go. There we go. Uh, man, it's been a great conversation. I don't want to keep you long. Got two more easy questions. Can you stick around a little longer?
Sure. Yeah, of
Awesome.
course. I'm here
You
for
know,
you,
I
bro. Whatever you need.
Hey, I appreciate you. I like to try to keep my people not only an hour. I don't want to abuse their time because you guys are so busy. But I appreciate you taking time talking to the people out there and just sharing your story. Again, when I listen to someone like you, it just reminds me that so many people are trying to get out there and face this impossible thing. But to walk it the way
Yeah.
you've walked it, you share a really humble story. We really appreciate you, man. Appreciate you so much.
No, man. Of
So,
course. Of course.
so here's a good question. I love this. You've written hundreds of songs, man, on your own and with your production teams. Was there ever
Hmm.
a specific song that when you were writing it, you're like, this is the one, it's gonna be fire, this is a hit, and you knew, and it was a hit, like you felt it when it was done. You're like, that's the one. Give me a couple of
Yeah.
those that came through.
Okay, so I'll work my way. We'll work up. Um, I'll go back to some of the things that like we got to do during the Underdog era. I knew "O for Omarion" was out of here. That was a record that actually was created and started by Tank. That he brought me in on, and we got to put together, kind of help formulate and flesh out his idea that he had. Um, I knew for a fact that that was out of here, just because of where the music was, the melodies, what he was talking about. I knew that was out of here. Another one I got to work on was Icebox for Omarion. Shout out to JQ for bringing me on that one. That's another thing we'll get to is how important relationships are, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, um, but yeah, Icebox I knew was out of here. Um, I knew that. One of the records that I was able to create and start was a record I did called 4 Minutes for Avant. I knew that at least I felt at that particular time that I had a special concept. I felt like I wanted to try to make a short movie out of that particular song. And it all came from an idea sparked from a meeting we had with Clive Davis at the time, where he was actually on the phone with someone in the background. And he was, yelling about some particular song. And I remember him saying, "You got 4 minutes to tell a story. You got 4 minutes to win people over," and all this other stuff. And I'm, paraphrasing, but in that, I remember, back to my point, I remember writing down 4 minutes in my phone as a note, or whatever it is at that particular time. I remember locking that concept in my head, and I was like, "You got 4 minutes to tell a story. 4 minutes to tell a story." And so I was like, "Well, let me figure out a way to say, what would if I had 4 minutes in order um, to tell a story about somebody, if you had your girl and your girl was leaving and you didn't know why, you didn't know all you know is you got home and she was trying to leave the house and you're trying to formulate and figure out what you did wrong, where the problem is, and knowing she's about to leave." I told Yvonne, I was like, "Let's write that story." It was very, I knew specifically, I was like, okay, I want the song to be exactly 4 minutes. I
Hmm.
remember I specifically grabbed a secondhand, uh, like a ticker that goes in the
Mhm.
song that I started at the beginning, and I kept it through the entire song on purpose to show that that the clock is ticking. That's part
Yeah.
of the lyric and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that it was very conceptual. It was very everything about that song was very thought out. And so it was
Mm.
something I was really, really proud of that was able to do and present. And I knew when we did that one, it was like, you know,
That's it.
I had no doubt that that was going to be one of his singles at least. Yeah. So
I think people, some is songwriters and producers out there that are listening, sometimes you feel like, well, this is the one. But like Tony said earlier, sometimes it's not the one. And you got to
yeah.
be okay with it not being the one. It's got to be okay being able to put it in the box for now and come back to it. Because, like you said, every song has a time. It may not be the right
Hmm.
time for that song. It may come up 10 years later in the perfect time, and boom, there it is. So don't always give
Yeah.
up on your track trying to think you know it all. But then,
Yeah.
like a Tony or a Kenny or a Percy or a
Hmm.
Bluetooth, these guys work with music all day long. They have a rhythm, they have a sense of, okay, there's something about this track. But tell me this, Tony, sometimes it's who the track goes to. Because the track can be
Hmm.
fire, but if it goes to the wrong person,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Back to my point about there's way more misses than hits. There's so many factors that go into a record working that you don't necessarily always have the answers to right away.
Hmm.
Um, you know, to what, like when we talk about that record Baby I, that Ariana ended up actually recording and putting out. We did it as an idea for Beyonce, and we thought it fit for what she said she wanted to do, that had a 90s feel to it and things like that. She passed on it, but at the same time, a year, 2 years later, um, we get the call to work with Ariana, and they're trying to figure out what her sound is supposed to be for that album and what she's looking for. Play that for Wendy Goldstein and her team, and they loved it. She recorded it, and it ended up being a record that actually helped put her out. So, which led to us actually ultimately being able to do about half of that out her first album, her debut album. So, all that being said, it was like, you don't know where the songs and the ideas that you do, how they're going to actually place you anywhere, even if they don't get placed. They can place you in the right position if you just go ahead, humble yourself, lean on God, let him do what he does, and just put your best foot forward and let him handle the rest. Because there's way too many factors that we do not control that, that you have to lean on him. And so I'm always going to say my testimony when it comes to being able to do this, as long as I have and to continue to do it, is always going to be leaning on God. It's never about me. It's never about me. And so for all of us, I would say for anybody that's interested in this, whether you believe in it or not, believe in God or not, you have faith in him or not, the reality is, for me, that's my story. My story is always going to be that he got me through the death of my father. He got me through, struggling with trying to reconcile my childhood traumas, my adult traumas. He and music was the thing that I leaned on, and then not only did I get to lean on it, it actually helped me build my career. It helped me, take care of my family. It helped me, do things that I would have never been able to do otherwise. And I get to, it's something I get to enjoy doing. So it's like, how can we be mad and be egotistical over something like that? You know what I mean? Like, it just literally makes no sense to me. That's just not something I compute with at all.
I just love your testimony, and it's so real and so honest. And everybody out there watching, you hear it from I won't say the horse's mouth. You hear it from the genius's mouth. It's all straight from God. So I got a couple more shout outs coming to you. They're coming in. They say, Myron Chandler said, "Proud of you, Tony. What's good?"
Oh, that's my uncle.
So what's good?
Uncle. He's actually, and I'll say this about him because I don't get to publicly say this about him enough. He's one of the big reasons I even got into the music business as well. Yeah, when I first got in the business, and my father passed away. I'll do the short version of the story. My father passed away. He comes and lives with us, and brings his keyboards and samplers to the house, and lets me go to work on them, and just lets me plug away at sounds and learning how to sample and learning how to put beats together, and not only becoming a surrogate for me and someone I can lean on, but also helping me be that, develop my skill and hone my craft. And he's the reason taught me about, different types of music and helped me lean on Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson and Michael Frank and all these other different things that I got exposed to, and showing me some of my first chord progressions and showing me how to, my fingering placement, all these other things. That's really because of him. So and I'm always going to say that again, God, my uncle. You know what I mean?
Let's give him some of this. There it is for Myron right there. That's your dude. Absolutely. And I know Myron too. I see him every year at the NAMM show. So what's good, Myron? We got you, bro.
What's up?
Always good. Yeah. He always stopped by and give mad love. So we always got you, man. Looking out for you. Always, always, always. A couple of more shouts for you, man. Percy Beatty said, "Tony and I, along with Kenny and Tony, did do what you need to do."
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a record called "Do It." That's on. It's a record on. It's called "Do It." It's on Tony's the last album she just put out. Yeah. Oh, Myron, stop.
You can see it. He said, "I'm crying. I'm crying right now."
Yeah. But yeah, I think yeah, it's true. I mean, I got to be honest about it. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But yeah. So Percy and I worked on a record for Tony called "Do It." Literally, we were just sitting in the studio. I had the chorus idea for it, and again, I trusted and leaned on his genius. You know what I mean? I was like, "What do you hear for the verse progression?" And The Greatness of Percy came out. He did it in probably 5 minutes, and I was like, "Yep, that one." You know what I mean? And then presented it to Tony. Tony and I got to sit down and actually write it, put it together. The rest is history with that, you know.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
all this greatness going on, and Percy gave you one more shout. He said, "Hey, it's Jed, aka Long Johns." I don't know about that one. So
Oh,
that's a story that we'll have to come back to.
yeah, that's a
I,
whole nother podcast.
I'm gonna leave that one alone. Viewers do not understand. We're gonna let that one
Oh my
sit.
gosh. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Oh man, I tell you,
You got to put some red tape
here's
on who you let on this podcast
I
right
know all these folks is talking yang, man. They're giving you all kind of
hmm
grief. One more
Yep.
shout though, Tony is the best of the best. So there you go.
Oh, that's Mark. That's my attorney.
Oh well, he definitely giving you love.
No, but not, and again, not just that he's my attorney. He's
Yeah,
a great human being, man. Like
yeah,
he even outside of the business, he's one of the most meticulous, thorough attorneys
nice.
that you'd ever want to meet. But at the
Love it.
same time, we do get to talk about life, and
Yeah,
I get advice from him on a lot of other things outside of just the entertainment business, man. And he's a genius, man. I love working with Mark, and yeah,
mm,
I'm one of those people. I'm a loyalist too, so you got me
yes.
locked. I'm there for life. So
Oh man, you've
that's
been
it.
my boy for life from day one. So I just know it's
Amen.
all good. I know if I need you, if I pick up the phone, you're like, yo, I got you.
It's
Always
that
have been.
simple.
So
It's
so
that
blessing,
simple,
so
bro.
blessing. Even my wife dropped in and said, "Love your story, Beauty from Ashes."
Um,
As shout out to you, baby. I know you're watching. Appreciate you watching over there.
yeah,
I miss you,
yeah.
boo. See you soon. All right, so let's go two more questions and close it up. I got an
Sure.
important one, and this is probably one of those that a lot of producers and artists out there thinking about. You know, musical styles change all the time, and what does
Right.
it take to really have the longevity as a producer or a songwriter as to stay musically relevant because it keeps changing. How do you do that?
Yeah. Humility first. And the reason I say humility is to realize you gotta get to a place where you realize where there's an era that changes that you're not necessarily comfortable with or familiar with, and you have to surround yourself with people who do it well. And so that's again back to the collaboration part of it. It's really important to me to surround myself with people who are in pulse with how things are pulse with how things are changing, um, and try to figure out a way to mix what they do with what you do, and try to figure out if you guys can come up with I just call it my own stew. Try to figure out a way to make your own blend of what they do and what you do, and come up with something that you're both proud of. Um, I've been fortunate enough to work with I worked with Giveon and a lot of other artists, new artists, and Kailani and all these other ones. Um, and in those moments, you have to figure out, okay, well, there's always a similarity because everybody's still trying to figure out a way to convey how they feel. It just may sound a little different. And so you have to, of course, from a technical aspect, do your due diligence in studying what that sound is and how to create it yourself and how to make some adjustments, how some progressions may change, how some cadences may change lyrically and things like that. And so you want to make sure you do that, but that requires humility because if you come in thinking that you know everything or that you got all the answers, that's how you end up on an island with all your own records that nobody wants to hear.
Oh
You have
wow,
to, you know what I mean? Like it's just real talk. So you
wow.
have to get to you keep yourself in a place of humility and surround yourself with people who are doing these things, and so that you can say, okay, I don't quite get it. Let me figure it out. Let me figure out why
Right.
you get it.
Okay.
And then it's like, okay, it's like cracking a code. To me, it's a challenge. It's kind of cool to me because it's like, okay, well, let me figure out what it is that you love about this, whatever the particular song is.
Hmm.
Okay, well, if we wanted to implement again, if it's like, okay, maybe it's about me implementing my chord progression
Hmm.
with some newer type sounding drums.
Hmm.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
well, you come up with a blend that kind of works. Or if it's a lyric idea or a concept, but in that lyrical concept, you want to come up with a way to say it in a way that, the next generation or the younger generation is saying it. So what do? You sit and you say, okay, well, I want to say this. How would you say this? And you say, okay, well, let's just say it that way and let's write it that way. We both are saying the same message. We're just going to communicate it in your own way. And so that's really, really big to me is just staying humble, staying open. None of us have it figured out. The whole thing about, especially in the music business, That whole thing about 10,000 hours to me is not true. And the reason I believe it's not true is because 10,000 hours is only accurate if the variables don't change. Music is always changing.
Interesting. Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
always a student.
Because you'd have to reset 10,000 hours again because you're starting all over with a new set of sound, a new vibe. It all changes.
Period. It always
Wow.
changes. And so you have to always stay a student. You have to be humble enough to go into any room and be a student and be of service so that you go in like, okay, again, I don't know everything. I know what I know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't know everything. So let me figure out a way, again, let me figure out a way to convey it the way you want to say it. Let me
Mm-hmm.
help speak your language.
Mm-hmm.
And that has always worked for me. You
Yeah.
know, I've been able to live and create through probably 3-4 different eras of music.
Wow.
And it's always about that. And then the other thing is keeping different people around you. I've had some younger producers that I've had around me that I've been fortunate enough to mentor and help groom and help nurture in the industry. And I never made them feel like I never tried to make them feel like I was the boss and they were the subservient one to me and they had to just listen to what I said. I always go in, even with them, with a spirit of service. Like, okay, how can I get the best out of you?
Mm.
Let me figure out a way to get the best out of what you do.
I
And
just love that.
again, and if you do that, you make them feel proud of what they do. You get proud of what you do. And then this is what happens. It becomes cyclical because what happens is they're going to start to grow, mature. They're going to go on and be in the business and going to meet their own artists and develop with these other artists. And they're still going to call.
Mm.
And I still get the calls to come in and work with artists that I never would have gotten to have access to on a regular basis had I not handled that approach. Had I go in thinking it was about me and leaving them out and making them feel unimportant and making them feel like their opinions didn't matter. I never do that. I
Wow.
figure if you've made it into the room, you're valuable enough that your opinion matters.
Wow.
Now let's just try to figure it out together. So all
So
of that
many
matters to
nuggets in
me.
that conversation. If you made it into the room, then your opinion is valuable enough to be discussed.
Yeah.
If you hear, let's talk it out.
Yeah. If you
Wow.
if you didn't make it in the room, you're not supposed to be. Not, at least
Wow.
not yet. You know what I
Come
mean?
on
Like,
now.
yeah, not yet.
Mm.
And
Wisdom.
I had to
Wisdom.
deal with the same thing. I've had to deal with that same process. I wasn't
Mm.
always accepted in every room that I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
There were rooms where I felt completely uncomfortable. I felt out of my element. I felt like I didn't belong. And I
Mm.
slowly beeline my way out. And if I didn't get to contribute, I would sit and listen and learn.
Yeah.
So that I could say, oh, that's how that works. Or that's how you create this.
Mhm.
I got to be in the room. Let me shut up and learn.
Always be a student.
Again, being forever a student, man. So you do that, you can't help but you can't help but get some wins out of that.
Wow.
You know.
Wow. You dropped so many nuggets. I gotta close it. I got one last question, and I'm sure everybody that's watching, I hope you've enjoyed just listening to the genius of this cat. And I don't mean just musical genius of him being a human being and sharing great
Mm.
wisdom. The nuggets have been there, so this is just life wisdom going on. So please be taking some notes. I'm gonna watch this again and take all the notes down so I can make sure I catch all the nuggets. Uh, you know, uh, as you've done this for over 20 decades, I mean 20 years now, 2 decades you've been in the game. Um,
Mm.
what does the future look like for you now? Or do you see yourself still doing this another 10 years, another 15 years, or do you see yourself maybe training someone else? What does the
Mhm.
future look like for Antonio Dixon?
Um, I think it's going to be more of this. Also, very sensitive to um, when I feel God has put it on me to be a big brother or a guide or a navigation for certain people in this industry who maybe had a lot of bumps and had some horrible experiences, but they're really, really talented. I try to lean on that and again be of service and say, look, let me at least I'll be your ear, I'll be your word of advice. I can be the phone call you need. I'll be your manager for the moment, whatever it requires for that moment to help things go well for you. Just to try to do that. So, from that perspective, I don't believe that any of that is going to change. I've also over the last few years, I've dove into doing a lot more scoring and a lot more film work. I got to do a lot of we did all the music for the New Edition film.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, the one that was on BET. I got to do
Yeah,
all
the
that music,
biopic.
which was
That
great
was
for me.
fire. That was
Yeah, that
fire.
was great
He
for me
did the music
because
for
I
that?
got to do,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
it
about to
was
go back and
great
listen to
because
it
we had to
again.
we had to reproduce all the original songs because
Wow.
they didn't have all the masters. And so I got to go back and literally grab all these old drum machines and all the things from the
Wow.
80s and reproduce that stuff and did everything I
Wow.
could in my power to try to make it sound as authentic as possible. So
Oh,
love that kind of stuff. But
amazing.
yeah,
Amazing.
I've gotten to do that. I got to do a lot of the music for the World Cup. I got
Get
to work.
out.
Yeah, I got to do a lot of the music that was done there for a lot of their campaigns and for the country of Qatar, which was great.
Mm,
I've gotten to do a lot more of that. So I really want to dive into doing a lot more scoring and film work. Um, I think that's one of the areas that I think I will do really well in.
mm,
Um, I definitely want to help develop the next generation of musical artists, musical producers, musical songwriters, and things like that. Because the thing is what I've been experiencing is that there's this huge tension and gap between the newer generation and our generation when it comes to music,
true.
the
True.
musical taste, musical respect,
Hmm.
lineage, all of those things. A lot of the newer generation really doesn't take into account, and so I try to figure out a better way to approach it and make them help them to respect what was paved before them, but at the
Mm,
same time respect their ear and respect
yeah.
what they do.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times you'll hear a lot of um, seasoned producers and things like that who will hate on the newer generation because a lot of their process is different. A lot of them
Hmm.
are not musicians. A lot of them don't
True.
play everything that they do. A lot of them are, a lot of beat guys and
Hmm.
samples and things like that.
Hmm.
Fine. It's the same music. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I come from a generation where you had to try to learn how to do everything. You learned how to play
Yeah.
everything. You learned how to write everything, record everything, and that's fine too. That's what it is.
True.
It just evolves. And
Yeah.
so I feel like one of the things that I've been called to do is to make sure that I help bridge that gap
Mm,
because the thing that I get frustrated me personally is that it's really difficult to turn on, let's just say, a playlist or turn on the radio and there's nothing that I personally want to listen to that I
mm,
can enjoy.
sure.
And I want, instead of complaining about it, I just want to help be the change that I'm looking for.
Mm,
So it's like, okay, well, let me get with the people who make this music
sure.
and let's just figure out a way to, again, bridge the gap. Because the thing is once they get access to you and
Yeah.
they actually know that you care
Yeah.
and that you really do genuinely care about what they do, then they open up the doors for you. And so you end up getting into this world and being able to do all of these different projects and different things that maybe you wouldn't have gotten access to. And then they respect you too.
Mm,
They respect your ear, they respect what it is that you do. Then I can also teach them like, look, okay, this, maybe we should create a chord change here, maybe we should do a modulation, or maybe not, maybe let's
mm,
do a bridge, or the melodies don't need to change here. All of these little things that maybe they don't necessarily have the language to express,
sure.
they get from me.
Yeah.
And and again, if whenever wherever I fit in on particular songs, if it's writing, if it's producing, if it's whatever, those are the things that I get to do and I love it. And so all of that being said, I think that's kind of where I'm supposed to be gearing towards next. But in regards to like leaving the music business or anything, like, I'm not
Yeah.
going anywhere, not
You know.
not unless God says so. I'm not going anywhere. I love it
All
too
right.
much. It's just a part
Well,
of who I am.
then we'll give you this. Thanks for staying around. Don't leave us. We love you. You can't leave
Uh,
us. We can't leave us. We absolutely
nah.
love it. Man, you have been a blessing today. Just bless my
Thank you,
socks
brother.
off just talking to you. And
I
as
appreciate
much
you,
as
man.
we know each other, we don't get to talk about some of this stuff as often. So it's nice to
Mm-hmm.
just kind of hear your story and hear how you think,
Mm-hmm.
what you think, and how you do what you do. And I just know
Mm-hmm.
you're a good human being. So I just get a bonus now from being able to hear your story about music and what you've accomplished along the way. 3
Thank you,
Grammys,
brother.
man. That's not nothing to sneeze at,
Amen.
bro. That's hard
Amen.
work.
God
That's
is good.
dedication.
God is good,
Yeah,
bro.
that's
That's all I can say.
dedication. That's dedication. And
Yeah.
is there anything you want to say to those young producers out there that are like, how do we get to where you are? How do we get started? How do we get out there and make our music and be producers, what would you tell those guys? And we'll close this off.
Um, First of all, figure out no. My friend JQ says it this way: know your why. Figure out your why.
Mm-hmm.
I say, figure out your purpose. Figure out what's your intention behind what it is you're supposed to be doing. Is the goal for you to be seen? Is the goal to get awards? Is the goal to get money? Whatever it is, go ahead and figure that out so that you're not disappointed when things don't go the way you expect them to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Understand why you're doing it, and then work harder than everybody else at doing it. If you really, really love this, you have to work harder than everybody at doing it. You have to get to a point where you get tunnel vision about how passionate you are about learning the craft, learning your chord progressions, learning your music theory, learning your drum patterns, learning your lyrical cadence. All of these things that I had to learn, I did out of necessity. And I did it out of drive and passion for what I love to do. I never had to be told when to do it, or I had to do it, or what time. I I get to do it.
Yeah.
So anytime I have an opportunity to do it, I'm all about it. And so you have to have that passion. Keep great relationships. Make sure that your name is reputable. Make sure that when people think of your name and your name is mentioned, that they have nothing but positivity to say about it. Because
That's the
again,
big key. Keep
yeah,
good relationships, man.
this
Relationships
business is
will
small,
matter.
man. Yeah, this business ultimately, you find out once you actually get in it, it's actually pretty small,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be really, really careful how your name travels and how you
Yeah,
want your
man.
name to travel. Yeah, you know what I mean? So be respectable, be of service. Don't do dirty business with people.
Yeah,
Make sure
man.
you take care of them because there's going to be times where you may need favors, but you want to
Yeah.
make sure that you've done business good by them and and so those are all the big things to me. Make sure that you work hard, stay humble, keep great relationships, and then let God handle the things that you can't control and handle the
Come
rest
on.
and just see where it leads. Yeah, know your why. You'll be fine.
I love it. Everybody out there, y'all have to just take these notes down and just put it in your phone. So when you need to go back to it, it's right there. Wisdom from the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Antonio Dixon. Man, thanks for stopping by and just chilling. I sure do appreciate you.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate you, man. God bless, bro.
Man, it's just been good to see you. And of course I send blessings to you and your family. And we know you're
Thank you,
gonna
man.
keep going and keep doing great things and keep your humble spirit. And I
Yes,
just can't
sir.
wait to see what you do next, man. So thank you for being
Yes,
here.
sir. Thank you
Yes,
for having
sir.
me, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
All
man.
right.
Anytime. And for everybody out there that's watching the segment, we always appreciate you stopping by. We thank you for being a part of the Beautiful Now podcast, Chasing the Impossible segment. If you love what you saw here, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We'll make sure we can send that good content to you as soon as it's available. And if you enjoyed this episode today, it will be a replay. You can just hit the share button. Once this episode is over, it will be on YouTube for you, and you can go back and share this with a friend. So we want to make sure everybody leaves uplifted, encouraged, and inspired. So thank you for being a part today. We appreciate you. Have a great night. Take care, everybody. We appreciate you.